Sherman was named after a Shawnee chief. He was born on February 8, 1820, in Lancaster, Ohio. Sherman's father died when he was 9. His mother sent him into a foster family because she had 11 children to look after. He married his foster sister in 1850. Sherman's military career started at West Point, where he met future military generals.
During the fall, Sherman came up with a plan to split his army in two. Part of the army would be led by General George Thomas, and they would head toward Nashville to deal with Hood, while Sherman would lead the rest of the army to take Georgia. Then after taking Atlanta, he ordered it to be destroyed. It is estimated that 40% of the city was destroyed. When Sherman left Atlanta, the whole industrial district was burned to the ground. Atlanta was a railroad hub and the industrial center of the Confederacy. When Sherman took over Atlanta, his supply line ran through Tennessee and into Georgia, where Sherman had just defeated the Army of Tennessee, but there were still soldiers from the Army of Tennessee in the area, and the leader named John Bell Hood was targeting Sherman's supply lines. Someone of even greater concern for Sherman was the cavalry of General Nathan Bedford Forrest, who could strike quickly against the railroads and river transports. Sherman led 60,000 soldiers from Atlanta to Savannah. The purpose was to frighten Georgia's civilians into abandoning the Confederate cause. Sherman's soldiers had taken food and all the other things from the land, but only destroyed the houses of those who fought back. Sherman led 60,000 soldiers from Atlanta to Savannah. The purpose was to frighten Georgia's civilians into abandoning the Confederate cause. Sherman's soldiers had taken food and all the other things from the land, but only destroyed the houses of those who fought back. After this battle, the Confederacy decided to run ahead of Sherman's troops and destroyed bridges, chopped down trees, and burned barns filled with food. The Union soldiers raided farms and plantations, stealing and slaughtering cows, chickens, turkeys, sheep, and hogs, and taking as much other food, especially bread and potatoes, as they could carry. Then they burned whatever they could not carry. This was meant to teach Georgians a lesson. Sherman's troops had arrived in Savannah on December 21, 1864. When they arrived, the 10,000 Confederates who were supposed to be guarding it had already fled. Then Sherman presented the city of Savannah to President Lincoln as a Christmas gift. In 1865, Sherman and his men left Savannah and headed towards South Carolina to Charleston. It is still debated whether the worst of the damage was done by Sherman's men or retreating Confederate troops. Sherman himself hated what he was doing to the South, but he had tried to convince them not to secede and had failed. During the March of the Sea, Sherman banned reporters because the press is what had caused him to have a mental breakdown. South Carolina was treated harsher than Georgia. The first state to secede was also the state where the Confederacy first fired shots on Federal Fort Sumter. Most of the city of Columbia was burned to the ground. By the spring, Sherman's army was in North Carolina, when news spread of Robert E. Lee's surrender at Appomattox. Sherman and Grant were friends, and when Grant considered resigning, Sherman convinced him not to. Sherman continued to serve with Grant during the Battle of Vicksburg and took control over the Mississippi River. Sherman remained in the U.S. Army after the war. When Grant became president in 1869, Sherman assumed command of all U.S. forces. Sherman retired in 1884 and lived in New York. Sherman died in New York on February 14, 1891, at age 71, and was buried in St. Louis. Joseph E. Johnston served as a pallbearer at Sherman's funeral. Joseph E. Johnston was a former foe of Sherman, yet he attended his funeral. Refusing to don a hat as a sign of respect, Johnston caught pneumonia and died just weeks later.